So Silksong came out and Twitter's mad. In other news, I'm still a hermit, so let's talk about it. This is gonna be a bit different from what I usually make, that being nothing, but hey, why not? I knew something like this was gonna happen, I think we all did. Nothing can just be universally celebrated anymore, but when I heard what people were actually arguing about, I just couldn't help myself. This is a new low even for my standards, so after betraying the last 10 people that still trusted me, I've come back from having a life to talk about this. Gonna be lots of new people for this one, so let's see how many like the voice. It's real cute, I know. For those that aren't new and for whatever reason haven't abandoned me, I've been working on a little something that now seems like the perfect time to show off. So what actually happened? Well, a few days ago the new Hollow Knight came out. I'm not making money off this, so I'm not gonna waste your time, so here's a lightning round of the facts. Everyone loved it, game was amazing, and best of all, it didn't cost a spare kidney to play. Some people aren't too happy about that last part. There's two main problems people have with Silksong: the announcement and the price. Announcement is surprisingly the more reasonable complaint, but still pretty brain dead, so let's zoom through it real quick. Other indie devs weren't happy that they only announced it 2 weeks before release because it didn't give them enough time to delay. Apparently a bunch of devs thought they had to delay their game for Silksong. Second complaint was the price. Silksong is only $20, very reasonable for an indie game, but apparently too reasonable. Now other devs are pissed that they have to lower their own prices. The logic is that gamers will now refuse any title that's over $20 because Silksong is so cheap, so why aren't you? I can't believe this actually has to be explained, but here it goes. Now if I was a YouTuber, I'd spend the next half hour going through all the obvious answers like GTA 6, how AAA wants to normalize triple-digit prices, how Silksong is a fucking Metroidvania, but here's the thing. People have a bad habit of watching the exact same video done by different people, and I wanna keep this short and sweet, so instead of telling you all the stuff you already know, I'll just skip straight to the stuff I've seen nobody else bring up yet. I think people have forgotten what indie games are, and I say that because the people arguing about this are coming at it from the most AAA perspective imaginable. What do I mean by this? AAA has kinda run itself into a corner. People who still for whatever ungodly reason touch AAA have accepted they can only really afford one game per year. The prices just keep climbing higher and higher and they don't seem to be stopping. Soon there'll be people who can't afford any games at all, but the ones that still can only really buy one game per year. Because of that, AAA devs have gotten into the habit of fighting every single other game in the market for your attention. They still openly shit on your plate and act shocked when you don't pay them for it, but that's another topic. Point is, there can only really be one successful AAA game per year now, with all the rest not only flopping but completely bankrupting their studios. This is the climate that a fucking entertainment industry is in right now, and it's entirely their own fault too. They're the ones that chose to make the games market a literal Hunger Games, they're the ones that decided every game needs to cost $500 million to make, they're the ones who chose to piss off consumers, and now they're all dropping like flies and nobody cares. Indie is a very different scene to this. The beauty of the indie game scene is that we don't have to worry about shit like this. I don't think I'm alone when I say that far too many indie devs are trying to be AAA. People were saying this all the way back when Poppy Pisstime announced a fucking movie deal before even finishing their second chapter, and it's only gotten worse since then. This is where I wanna quickly swing back to that first complaint about having to delay marketing. What marketing? Indie stands for independent. The whole fucking point is that you don't need fancy marketing. You wanna know what your marketing is? Content creators, streamers, YouTubers, these are the people that push your game out there, and you know who's not playing Silksong? YouTubers.
Will you put Silksong streams on YouTube? I'm not even gonna stream it. I'm not uploading it at all. That's one of those games that I'm keeping just for myself, because I want to.
It's not just Jack either. 8-Bit Ryan was asked to play Hollow Knight for years, and every single time his answer was the same. Hollow Knight is such a long game that he couldn't justify a series for it. This isn't 2017 anymore, YouTubers can't just play what they want anymore. If views go down for a series, they have to stop it, and the longer a series is, the bigger that risk is. Why do you think every single video has to be 11 hours long now? Silksong might be a hot topic right now, but not for the reasons that Let's Players care about. This is why I don't get why so many games suddenly delayed. Like, why the fuck would No I'm Not a Human care? Those games aren't even remotely similar, not to mention that the latter is very much a YouTuber game, so this would have been the perfect hole to fill. Don't clip that, and it's just this petty self-loathing woe is me attitude that so many of these people have. This doesn't benefit me, my game isn't as good as theirs, I'm a nobody and that's your problem. Why would Team Cherry care about this? Who put them in charge of the indie dev space? I'd argue they're not even an indie studio anymore, they're much closer to AA than indie at this point. My brother in Christ, this isn't the same space, you're not competing with Silksong, you're competing with fucking Smile Dog.
This picture is insane, bro! Why is that dog looking back like that?
This script is already nearing 2 pages, so let's get back to the price. To think that people are this fucking stingy with their money is actually insulting, and that's coming from a Muffet OC. Silksong is so cheap even pirates are buying it because they wanna support the devs. Here's the truth. People like spending money on indie games because they know it's going to a good cause. Every last cent you spend on an indie project is directly supporting them, keeping their lights on and letting them make more games. It's a fair trade, they can't make games full-time if they can't make a living off it, so instead of spending over $70 on a game that doesn't even fucking work, you could spend a fraction of that on a dev that actually needs the money. People are far more understanding when it comes to indie devs charging higher prices, and even then, it's not even close to what AAA charges them, so I just don't get this argument. It's such a cynical assumption to make about your customers, one that's practically burned into you as a AAA dev but discouraged at all costs for us. Most of these people are on Bluesky, so maybe I'm expecting too much reason, but it just feels so fucking obvious. In a timeline where people just wanna avoid a triple-digit price tag, what makes you think they'd suddenly demand everything to be under $20 just because a fucking Metroidvania did it? I can't stress that enough. By the way, there's a reason that genre is named after 2 specific franchises, because nobody else does it. Metroidvanias are great, but they're really not that hard to make. Silksong's polish is another story, but gameplay-wise, it's really not that crazy. $20 seems very reasonable for a game like this. Almost all the hype around this game is coming from its fanbase, so for an average person like me that loved Hollow Knight but didn't become a super fan, this is what I'd expect a game like this to cost. It's not revolutionary, it's just a really good game, which is all we need right now, bringing me to my last point. We need more games like Silksong. Not many people say that, and I don't know why. The only real criticism I have is that it took almost a decade to come out. Now don't get me wrong, taking their time with this game was absolutely the right call to make, but that doesn't mean we can only have one Silksong every few years. 80 hours of content might sound like a lot, until you remember how long it took to make. People feel like because it's such a small team that it's selfish to ask for more, but I don't think so. I don't think we should have to wait 7 years for a single good game. Quality will always be more important, but the industry is always evolving, so why not improve on quantity now? How, you ask? Well, Team Cherry isn't the only goddamn studio out there. There's thousands of talented devs out there that could easily make their own Silksong. Isn't that how indie games started? People who grew up with games like Resident Evil, Earthbound, Doom and wanted to make their own. Silksong looks intimidating because the art is so detailed, but you don't need the same art style. Point is, saying that Silksong is ruining the industry just doesn't check out no matter how you look at it. There's no reality where what they've done isn't a massive slam dunk. AAA is sweating more than ever, indie devs are getting more support than ever, and with fans literally begging Silksong to take more of their money, I think prices will be just fine as long as your game is actually worth it. Kind of a random topic, but hey, I needed a short and simple video to come back with, so here I am. I was gonna come back for the new Deltarune, but let's just say, I got kinda tied up. I do wanna talk about the new chapters though, that's something I'm definitely still working on. I know my word means less than nothing at this point, but I really do miss making videos like this. It's a combination of not liking the editing and just not finishing projects that made me quit. I think the Omori video was over 50 pages already and I wasn't even halfway through. Then I accidentally solved 5 Nights at Freddy's in a single afternoon and didn't finish that either, so now they're both just kinda stuck in purgatory. I just need to keep things short and simple for a while, then eventually we can finally talk about Freddy. And if you're new here and haven't clicked off yet, I am so sorry.